good morning to you, and thank you so much for waking up with us here on Fox 36. It's 7 o'clock. We're dealing with a whole lot of rain out there right now. Have you seen this video from Point Place? We're going to play it for you now here. You can see those powerful winds moving through our area. There are growing fears this morning over a missing submersible with 5 people on board in the Atlantic Ocean. For a 5th day, the U.S. Coast Guard is searching. It's really incredible, Ryan. We're going to bring you in here right now. You know, just to see all of this video, right? We typically see it elsewhere.
Like we're talking about Texas and Oklahoma.
And how important is video like this when it comes to assessing damage and really trying to figure out exactly what happened?
Well, talking last night with the National Weather Service, they used this video as examples.
The information that we have right now is pretty limited, but we want to give you an up-close view of what's happening right now. This is a live image. As you can see, it looks like smoke and flames coming from the top of the building here. We could soon see lab-grown meat in stores. The Agriculture Department approved 2 California-based companies to sell lab-grown chicken. I don't know if a lot of people know that you dress differently depending on the day of the week.
Well, I try not to wear the same clothes.
That's important. But the fact that you color code it.
I do. Today's navy blue Tuesday.
Yeah. Look at this. The mayflies are back. And you know, especially if you've been downtown or anywhere near the lake, river, things like that, they're a part of lakeside living. Unwelcome, I think, right? Most people would say they're unwelcome visitors.
You doing okay over there, Tiffany?
This is disgusting. Well, you are looking at video right now of when those strong storms blew through, a tornado touching down in our area yesterday. Now, here's a better look at the damage from the sky. Look at this. It's really hard to see after those violent and powerful storms moved across northwest Ohio. A lot of damage done to this medical facility here in Point Place. We've also heard reports of damage in southeast Michigan as well. Now, our team recorded at least 3 tornadoes that hit the area. Point Place, Oak Harbor, possibly one in Huron County. They're working hard to keep you in the know this morning about what's next for these areas that have been hardest hit. Now, Trent is tracking the issues that are happening in Point Place. He's talking to people there, getting a look at what the situation is like here in the daylight. Zainab Shaib has the very latest when it comes to road closures from these storms. She's going to help you get around that and to avoid any issues on your drive. But we want to start with Ryan Weekman this morning. Ryan, we know that crews will be out today really assessing the damage from these storms.
Yeah, they will, from the National Weather Service.
All right, so let's get a closer look at those power outages that we've been talking about. We know thousands of people will be waking up without power this morning, and this is why so many remain in the dark this morning. Damage from trees, power lines. I mean, there's debris just about everywhere after this wicked weather ripped through our area. The threat of storms is behind us, but this morning, it's really all about the cleanup. That's where we find our Trent Croce this morning. He joins us live from Point Place. We know some roads are blocked there as well, Trent, and we see crews there actually behind you.
Going back to you, back in the studio, Tiffany.
Trent, before you go, can I ask you a quick question? We hear the chainsaws there in the background as well. Can you tell where those crews are from? Are those people in the neighborhood? Is this the city working to clean this up? What's happening out there? Trent, thank you. We will check back in with you during our One Thing You Need to Know at the end of the newscast to get that update. Right now, Toledo police are investigating a shooting that ended in a standoff on the north side. Officers were called to Dexter for a person shot just before 1 o'clock in the morning. They found a man shot who was taken to the hospital. Now, witnesses told officers the suspect ran into a home. SWAT got there and tried to get whoever was inside out, but around 3:15, they shot tear gas inside. 20 minutes later, SWAT went into the home, but we didn't see anybody being brought out. At this time, it's unclear if anyone was arrested. Well, we are working on several big stories for you this morning, counting down the 3 things you need to know. Number 3, Fighting continues in Canada to contain hundreds of massive wildfires with no relief. The summer heat is causing issues for crews as temperatures reached up to 100 degrees in areas just 90 miles south of the Arctic Circle. A record 22.7 million acres have burned so far. Number 2, countries including the U.S. are experiencing deadly floods. This morning, scientists say this will only become more common as the atmosphere warms. Right now, storm and flood alerts are in effect for Vermont and New Hampshire. In Japan, floods and mudslides have killed 2 people and left 6 missing. And finally this morning, testimony is expected today in regards to the merger between the PGA Tour and Saudi-backed Live Golf. Members from both sides will be testifying at a Senate hearing. Right now, lawmakers are concerned over risks tied to Saudi Arabia's influence in pro golf. New development could be coming to Toledo Southside, but not everybody's happy about it. It's a 28-unit single-home villa called Heather Cove. It would be built on a field on Schneider Road in the Glendale Heatherdowns neighborhood. While some neighbors say they don't want it at all, others tell us it depends on the type of development.
Why add the conjunction?
Right now, that field is zoned for office or commercial use. Toledo's Plan Commission is holding a hearing this Thursday to consider changing that to residential use.
We were living in unprecedented times in 2020. We were dealing with a deadly pandemic and in some cases forced to come face to face with racism and discrimination.
A Minneapolis police officer killed George Floyd 3 years ago today. It sparked outrage and change around the world. Now the time has passed. Tiffany Tarpley answers the question, was this a moment or a movement?
Growing up in Cleveland's inner city was anything but easy for Dariante Stewart and his family.
You have violence at your front door. You have poverty at your front door. You was faced with so much adversity. And I've seen some of my best friends go to prison for 17 years at the age of 16.
Stewart followed a different path. He went to Lourdes University in Sylvania on a basketball scholarship and ultimately graduated with a degree in criminal justice. Stewart says he wanted to be a part of the solution, not the problem.
I knew that in order for people that look like me to get a step ahead, we needed to be in positions of power as opposed to just talking about why things are going the way they are.
Stewart is walking the talk.
What's up?
He started a career in law enforcement in Southern Ohio with the State Highway Patrol, and in December made his way back to the city of Sylvania as a patrol officer.
At the end of the day, the only thing I'm trying to do is make sure my last name means something in a positive light as opposed to a negative.
Choosing law enforcement, he lost so-called friends along the way. But there was also a moment when the officer himself questioned his own career choice.
Stopping his breathing right there, bro.
The day he, just like so many others, watched what happened to George Floyd in Minneapolis. In May of 2020, video showed Officer Derek Chauvin kneeling on Floyd's neck for about 9 minutes, killing him.
As a black man, it was scary, honestly, because when I'm outside of this uniform and I'm in regular clothes, nobody knows that I'm a law enforcement officer, so that very well could have been me. That could have been my brother. That could have been my cousin, my uncle.
The world was being ravaged by a deadly virus, right? People were dying, people were losing jobs, people were losing benefits. Like, all those things were occurring, and the world was shut down. So people had nothing to do but to pay attention.
This time, the world was watching. Dr. Monita Mungo is an assistant professor of sociology at the University of Toledo.
More people saw it at a time where more people are outraged, because at that same time, everyone's going through social inequality. For many of non-people of color, they actually got to see what Black Americans have known for decades and decades and have experienced.
Yes, there were protests demanding police accountability and reform just about everywhere, but even more happened in society. Companies changed racist branding of products, donated money to organizations organizations that supported Black and other minority communities, and some even created diversity, equity, and inclusion programs for the first time.
Toledo, Lucas County was a part of the wave of let's get this right. Our community, like many communities all around our country, declared racism a public health crisis.
Lisa McDuffie is the president and CEO of the YWCA of Northwest Ohio. Part of the organization's mission is eliminating racism and its effects on women and girls.
There was, I think, a wave of things that started to happen, and many of them, very, very good.
McDuffie believes the push toward equity and diversity after the murder of George Floyd is a movement.
This thing is deep, it is structural, it is systemic, and in order to really begin to change it, it is something that has to be looked at over a period of time.
As for Dr. Mungo, she feels it was a moment. She says police brutality is still happening and policing hasn't changed much. But Dr. Mungo also believes the push has created more awareness, but says now awareness has to move to action.
When the needle is moving on life outcomes for people of color, and Black people specifically, that's when you can tell that it has worked.
I was told that if you don't question what you're doing sometimes, maybe it's not the right thing for you.
3 years after questioning his career, the 26-year-old is still working in law enforcement, as he says, serving his community the best way he knows how.
Inside uniform or out, always try to do the right things for the right reasons.
And he has his family support, including his oldest brother, who Officer Stewart says is serving a life sentence in prison.
He's like, I'm so proud of you being able to make it out from the inner city of Cleveland, because not too many of us do. And he calls me all the time, asking for good stories and if I did anything cool.
Officer Stewart has a positive outlook on life and his career. He says more police departments are actively looking to hire people of color and women.
We've came a long way, but that can't distract how much longer we have to go. So I think it is a movement still to this day, but we got so much more work to do.
Tiffany Tarpley there with that report. Officer Stewart says he wants to become a supervisor one day and get more involved and maybe do some public speaking as well.
Powerful look back on this significant day.